Have you ever looked at someone who is just incredibly successful and thought to yourself, man, why can't I be like them? Or maybe you've sat completely silent in a meeting, even though you knew you had the exact right answer. Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a really profound mystery. We're going to figure out why our own brains seem so completely determined to sabotage our true potential.
Why can't I be like them? What if I fail? We've all been there, right? We've all delayed chasing a dream or starting a new project because of that quiet, persistent voice in our head whispering that we just aren't good enough. It's a totally universal internal struggle. And we usually interpret that voice of self-doubt as proof that we're weak, or that we just lack whatever it takes to succeed. But science actually tells a completely different and frankly, a fascinating story. Here is the crucial truth you need to hear. Self-doubt is not a personal weakness. It's ancient survival software. Think about that for a second, because it's a massive paradigm shift. That feeling of hesitation, it isn't a glitch. It's actual proof that your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's running this prehistoric program that was originally designed for one very specific, very important purpose: keeping our ancient ancestors alive in a highly dangerous world. Section 1. Built for ancient survival.
Okay, so to really understand this, we have to rewind the clock back to the evolutionary history of the human brain. Thousands of years ago, life was infinitely more perilous than it is today. I mean, for early humans, having unshakable confidence was absolutely never the priority. Surviving the day was literally the only metric of success that mattered. Just one fatal mistake, choosing the wrong path in the wilderness, hunting a dangerously unpredictable animal, or placing your trust in the wrong stranger, any single one of those decisions could cost early humans everything. It meant death. And because the stakes were so incredibly high, evolution selectively built a brain that constantly, obsessively asked, but what if you're wrong? Because a brain that hesitated, well, it made fewer fatal errors.
Now, today, you're probably not worrying about being chased by lions or accidentally foraging for toxic berries. But here is the catch. Your brain doesn't actually know that. Its outdated alarm system treats modern situations, things like walking into a job interview, public speaking, starting a new business, or even just posting an opinion online. It treats those exactly like life or death prehistoric threats. It triggers self-doubt to keep you from stepping out of the cave, so to speak.
Section 2. Why your brain expects failure.
This brings us to a somewhat jarring realization about how our minds operate today. Your brain's primary motivation in the modern world is not actually making you successful, wealthy, or fulfilled. Its primary motivation is simply keeping you safe, period. It actively expects failure because assuming the worst is the safest biological bet you can make. The brain's logic is actually foolproof in its own twisted way. Think about it. If you never apply for that big promotion, you can never be rejected. If you never start the business, you can't go bankrupt. If you never confess your true feelings to someone, you can never get your heart broken. Avoiding pain by simply not trying is your brain's absolute preferred method of protecting you. It equates doing nothing new with staying alive.
Scientists have a very specific term for this. They call it loss aversion. It's this psychological phenomenon where we experience losses far more intensely than we experience equivalent gains. Just think about your own life for a second. One single burning moment of embarrassment can easily, instantly outweigh dozens of compliments in your memory. A single public failure can seemingly erase months of quiet, steady progress. Your brain holds onto that pain like a vice because, historically, remembering danger was a survival imperative.
Section 3. The tribal inner critic. We so often view our inner critic as this personal enemy, right? Like a toxic roommate just living in our minds. But to actually master it, we need to reframe what the inner critic truly is. It's a desperately outdated social alarm system. Imagine living in a prehistoric tribe. If you acted recklessly or if you were too overconfident and ignored social rules, you could be exiled. And back then, being rejected by the group meant no food, no protection, and almost certain death. Today, your brain still hits that exact same panic button, even when the absolute worst possible consequence is just getting fewer likes on a social media post or an awkward silence in a Zoom meeting. The biological reaction is completely out of proportion to our modern reality. So that inner critic, it evolved as your tribal guardian. It constantly bombards you with these panic-inducing questions. What if people judge you? What if you totally embarrass yourself in front of everyone? It really isn't trying to make you miserable. It's just frantically trying to prevent you from acting recklessly and risking that ancient terror of social exile. Section 4. The paradox of intelligence. Now, you might be wondering, surely smart, highly capable people have figured this out and don't feel this way, right? Well, that brings us to a truly incredible scientific paradox. Research consistently shows that highly capable, intelligent people often experience the most intense self-doubt of all. Because the more you learn, the more you see what you don't know. As you gain knowledge, you gain a humbling awareness of how complex the world really is. And this can make extremely capable people question themselves constantly. Meanwhile, someone with very little knowledge might feel artificially, overwhelmingly confident simply because they lack the expertise to even recognize the massive gaps in their own understanding. So if you ever feel like you aren't good enough, just remember that feeling alone might actually be proof of your own intelligence and awareness.
Section 5. Your brain loves negative evidence.
Okay, so we know the brain wants to keep us safe, and we know it fears social exile. But how does it maintain this protective bubble? Well, it actively filters reality to support its own fears. Let's say you post something online, or you give a big presentation, and you get 100 comments. 98 of them are just glowing, positive praise, but 2 of them are negative. Which ones do you remember right before you fall asleep? Almost everyone fixates on the criticism. Your brain absolutely loves negative evidence. This is known in psychology as the negativity bias. But why does this happen? Simple, because ignoring praise is safe. Ignoring danger is fatal. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, ignoring a compliment never killed anyone. But ignoring a warning sign, that was deadly. So your brain collects evidence of your past failures, the time you stumbled on your words, the time they laughed at you, and it gives that evidence VIP access to your memory, while simultaneously throwing out the dozens of times you succeeded. It's not being fair to you, it's just being protective. Section 6. Rewiring your brain. So we've spent a lot of time on mystery and the mechanics of why our ancient brains hold us back. But let's move to the most empowering part of this explainer, the mastery. The incredible news here is that we are not permanently stuck with this prehistoric programming. The key to overriding self-doubt lies in a beautifully scientific mechanism called neuroplasticity. This is your brain's literal ability to physically change, to form new neural pathways, and update its expectations based on new experiences. Every single time you face something difficult, your brain has a brand new opportunity to overwrite its ancient software and realize that modern growth is actually safe. You see, confidence does not just magically appear before you take action. It grows as a result of repeated action. So start small. Speak up just once in that meeting. Share just one idea. Accept just one minor challenge. You do not have to conquer the entire world in a day. You just have to prove to your ancient brain that taking a single step outside the cave won't actually kill you. Because every single small victory becomes new evidence. When you speak up and the world doesn't end, your brain records a new data point. It says, okay, well, this situation isn't quite as dangerous as I thought. And gradually, by stocking these tiny moments of proof, you start to quiet that ancient voice of doubt. You are literally rewiring your neural pathways through action. Section 7. Mastering the ancient software. As we wrap up this explainer, let's bring it all together. Mastering this ancient software really requires accepting one fundamental truth. Self-doubt is not a flaw in your character. It is simply a very old, very cautious defense mechanism trying to run in a fast-paced modern world. It evolved to protect you from danger, not to help you achieve your biggest dreams. Which means we have to shatter a massive myth right now. The most confident, successful people you admire? Yeah, they still hear that voice too. The self-doubt never completely disappears because they still have human brains. The only difference, the absolute game changer, is that they've learned they just don't have to obey it. They feel the fear, they hear the ancient warning, and they choose to move forward anyway. Courage isn't the absence of self-doubt. It is taking action despite it. Every single time you push forward despite that voice telling you to stay comfortable and hide, you are teaching your brain something incredibly powerful. You are proving unequivocally that you are stronger than your ancient fears. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to reflect on today. What is one dream your self-doubt has been holding back? Is it a career pivot, a creative project, or maybe a conversation you've been avoiding for months? Understanding your brain's ancient mechanics is the very first step toward overriding them. Now that you know the science, it's time to take action. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this empowers you to take that very first step.